Hey, how's it going? This is PK, Pastor Kevin, coming at you on Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. Good to have you here. If you're a subscriber, you are my VIP. You are so awesome. This is my first of 3 videos titled Inspiration from Horror Movies. That is to say, inspiration about real life people who were a part of the behind the scenes of some of the most iconic horror images and scary movies of all time. Now, if you don't like Halloween or scary movies, then you might as well just not watch this video at all, because I don't want to get into a debate in the comment section about Christians participating in Halloween or Christians watching horror movies. But if you are interested in real life inspirational stories and you are interested in Halloween or scary movies, then please continue watching this video. If I began singing a song titled "School's Out for the Summer, School's Out Forever," would you know who sang that song? That song was written by Alice Cooper, the man and the band. Back in the 70s, the music genre was dominated by the Beatles and Beatlemania and Leonard Skinner and Boston and Rush and many groups. We were still in the hippie generation of that time period. And suddenly a band came out called Alice Cooper. It was a group of friends who all had long hair, and they called themselves Alice Cooper collectively, and they played this loud, obnoxious rock and roll music. They came out of Phoenix and then Detroit. They began playing for small nightclubs, and they were booed and jeered, sometimes cheered. And pretty soon, though, the kids began to fall in love with this crazy, obnoxious band. And they began gaining traction and momentum and success. And they began playing for bigger venues. And they began to implement dramatic theatrics in their stage show with a guillotine and giant spiders and horror characters on stage. And pretty soon, the band Alice Cooper and the man called Alice Cooper, the lead singer, became a nationwide and worldwide phenomenon. The lead singer, named Vincent Furnier, changed his name legally to Alice Cooper. And pretty soon he became the face of the band. And pretty soon he was guest starring on The Muppet Show and being a guest star on The Johnny Carson Show and meeting Groucho Marx and Frank Sinatra and Mae West and many celebrities. Throughout the 70s and 80s, Alice Cooper, the band, was so successful and popular and influential that they paved the way for the theatrics of Ozzy Osbourne and Kiss. Way before Rob Zombie and Marilyn Manson, a singer with a woman's first name, there was Alice Cooper. He was the original. He was unique. No one was doing what he was doing back in the day. Now, not everyone knows that during the heyday of his success in the 70s, the man, the lead singer, Alice Cooper, began to drink alcohol. Quickly, he became an alcoholic. Pretty soon, he dabbled in drugs. And it began to escalate. As the success of the Alice Cooper band grew stronger and bigger and more influential, the man Alice Cooper became more and more an alcoholic and drug abuser. Now, he met and fell in love with his wife, Cheryl. They began to have kids, but his friendships with the band members became strained. His marriage became strained because of his increased alcohol use. And at one point, Cheryl said to him, "I'm leaving you. I'm taking the kids. I've warned you. Enough's enough." And Alice Cooper, the man, he found himself one day in this dirty, grimy, disgusting hotel room, just surrounded by beer cans. And he had an awakening. He had an epiphany. He had a realization of what he had become. Jekyll had become Hyde. He had become the monster that he saw on stage. So he checked himself into a clinic to get clean and sober. Although it wasn't a clinic, it ended up being a mental institution. But he didn't know before he checked in. He checked himself in, he talked to God, he cried out to God, and he began to get clean and sober. And a very important point about his life is Alice Cooper, who was born Vincent, he was a pastor's kid. He and his family went to church twice on Sunday, on Wednesday. He was very faithful during his younger years in Bible study and prayer, believing in God. And he never lost his belief in God. But when he became Alice Cooper and he became so successful, going to church fell by the wayside. Believing in God was still there, but his prayer life and Bible reading all went on the back burner of his life. So fast forward, when he checked himself into a clinic, which was a mental institution, he began to cry out to God. He began to cry out to the God who never forgot him. He cried out to God that he always knew was there, but he put God on the back burner. Big mistake. Alice Cooper would be the first to admit that he was the prodigal son who was coming home. And long story short, he called Cheryl, his wife, and said, "I'm done with all the alcohol, all the drugs. I'm ready to come back." She's like, "Yeah, right, we'll see." She was very suspicious. So she gave him a list of things to do to earn back her trust. One of which was that they had to go to counseling with a pastor, their pastor, and Alice had to be the one to make the phone call. And he agreed to all of her stipulations. They met with the pastor, and he showed himself to be clean and sober. In fact, Alice will say that he was supernaturally delivered from drugs and alcohol. And the mental institution / clinic helped. But when he left, he had no desire to get involved in AA, Al-Anon, or any other kind of group. By the way, AA and Al-Anon are great, wonderful things. But Alice said, "No, I'm delivered. I have no desire for alcohol." And so, long story short, Alice and Cheryl, their marriage is still intact. They stayed together. He has stayed clean and sober all these years. And that was in the early 1990s and late 80s that this happened. He had one time where he slipped and fell off the wagon, but he got right back, and he credits God, his marriage, and golf to keeping him clean and sober. And so Alice Cooper is a success story in more ways than one. A professional success story and a personal success story, because Alice Cooper is literally one of the few celebrities of the 70s and 80s who is, number one, still clean and sober. Number two, still married to the same wife for 20 plus years. No divorce, no remarriage. And number three, his kids are all doing well. They're not in the drugs, not in the alcohol. They're all doing well. And now Alice Cooper has grandchildren. And number four, he's still a professing Christian. He knew that God was always there for him, even though he forgot God for all these years. And that's what Denzel Washington also says. So Alice Cooper is amazing, and his connection to horror is that, like I said, he always had a horror element, many horror elements in his stage show. He had the guillotine and the giant spider. He did a video and song with Vincent Price. He made 3 rock and roll songs for the 1986 movie Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. And so that's the horror connection. Alice Cooper's personal life had become a real life horror story, a real life nightmare with the drugs and alcohol and almost divorce. But he is clean and sober. He still loves God. He has raised money through a celebrity golf tournament for a foundation called the Solid Rock Foundation, which has made a teen center in Phoenix, Arizona that helps teenagers. So the point is, there is hope for you. If your life is a mess, there's hope for you. If you're into the alcohol and drugs, there is hope for you. If you're surrounded by porn or beer cans or whiskey cans, there is hope for you. You can be saved and delivered and healed. So call out to God. Alice Cooper is a bright, shining example in the rock industry and the horror industry of somebody who is living his life for Christ, happily married to the same woman, to the same wife all these years, great kids, healthy life, playing golf, praising God, and making his rock and roll music. So thanks for watching, and please join me for my part 2 and part 3 in this series this week, Inspiration from Behind the Scenes of Horror. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Take care and God bless.